It is now a proven scientific fact that Srila Prabhupada was poisoned in 1977 with the heavy metal cadmium.
Cadmium is an element found in nature in mineral forms. It is obtained for commercial uses principally from cadmium ore called greenockite, commonly found in association with zinc ore. It is produced by the refining of zinc ores. Cadmium metal is practically insoluble in water, but some cadmium salts are water soluble, such as cadmium chloride, cadmium sulfate, and cadmium nitrite.
Three authenticated hair samples that the ISKCON GBC themselves wanted to test in 1999 were abandoned after they declined to pay for the tests. The Truth Committee, a loose-knit group of concerned devotees, including former ISKCON GBCs and temple presidents, located these samples in Wisconsin and then paid for the tests, receiving the results in 2002 to 2005. The tests were done at the Missouri University Research Reactor, one of the world's most advanced neutron activation analysis facilities, by a Dr. Stephen Morris. In 3 separate tests, he found extremely elevated cadmium from 12 to 20 parts per million. This is about 250 times above the average normal person, and conclusively scientifically establishes a malicious homicidal poisoning of Srila Prabhupada that could not have happened accidentally, because the cadmium levels are so catastrophic and unprecedented in the scientific literatures.
OSHA has established workplace levels to protect the health of people occupationally exposed to cadmium. The permissible exposure limit per time-weighted average is 5 micrograms per meters cubed. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health has set what is called the immediately dangerous to life and health level, which is currently set at 9 milligrams per meters cubed. The FDA has set a maximum limit of cadmium in bottled water. The ATSDR set a standard for how much cadmium can be taken in orally without risk of adverse health effects. That chronic durational oral minimal risk level is 0.1 micrograms per kilogram per day. The EPA food reference dose is 1 × 10 to the -3 milligrams per kilogram per day. For water, the reference dose for human exposure is 5 × 10 to the -4 milligrams per kilogram per day. The World Health Organization has set a tolerable weekly intake for cadmium at 7 micrograms per kilogram per body weight per week. Current exposures through diet are not believed to cause adverse health effects. Those in the United States who suffer higher than average exposures to cadmium are because of occupation, hobby, or personal habits such as smoking. As a cumulative toxin,
Srila Prabhupada himself stated 3 times that he thought he had been poisoned. And anyone who thinks Srila Prabhupada ever did not know what he was talking about is in gross ignorance. He wanted to be taken on Vrindavan Parikram in his last days, saying that staying in his quarters was like being killed by Ravan. but that dying on Parikram would be like being killed by Ram.
Ravan will kill, and Ram will kill. Better to be killed by Ram.
He also pleaded with his caretakers not to torture him and put him to death.
That is my only request, that at the last day, don't torture me and put to death.
He also had warned in May of 76.
They may kill me also.
Srila Prabhupada's health was very good up until he met with Tamal in Hawaii in May of 1976. Balaram Das from Australia remembers. Srila Prabhupada visited Melbourne April 19th to 25th of 76, before going to New Zealand and Hawaii. Apart from the tiresome plane ride to Melbourne, Srila Prabhupada was in very good health, and we accompanied him on his usual brisk morning walks in the famous botanical gardens. As the temple president, I had some close association with His Divine Grace while serving him for a week. Srila Prabhupada gave classes every day, was very vibrant, talkative, and visited by many important people. I mention this as this was only a little over a year prior to Srila Prabhupada's departure, and there was absolutely no reason at the time to suspect any problems with his health. Just weeks earlier, in March of 76, Srila Prabhupada had severely chastised Tamal in Mayapur for his total disturbance of the North American preaching by his moves to take over all the temples with his own men. Of course, Tamal felt very humiliated and misunderstood. From mid-76, Srila Prabhupada's health began to suffer and decline, with constant bronchitis, rhinitis, and digestive problems, colds, cough, and heavy mucus, symptomatic of cadmium poisoning. As Srila Prabhupada left New York and his host Tamal on July 20th of 76, he became inordinately ill. On the plane to London, he laid down the entire flight and vomited 3 times on the roadside coming from the airport. For the next 6 months, Srila Prabhupada was very weak and struggled to slowly recover. It is suspected that the cadmium poisoning actually began in 76 with the Tamal meetings, although hair tests so far confirm that it was in full force at least by February of 77 and lasted until Srila Prabhupada's departure almost 9 months later. Tamal himself describes what he could have done, namely give Srila Prabhupada a death-inducing medicine, otherwise known as poison.
We could have done that.
3 whispers on tapes of Srila Prabhupada made in his last days have been forensically certified multiple times to be caretaker disciples discussing the poisoning of their guru. An Ayurvedic urine analysis by Banamali, one of Srila Prabhupada's old Kaviraj friends in Vrindavan, determined poisoning in late October of 77. On November 9 and 10th, 77, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Charu, Tamal, Bhavananda, and the last doctor all discussed together at length how Srila Prabhupada was being poisoned homicidally as murder by a Rakshasa. And Tamal even asked, "So who is it that is poisoning Srila Prabhupada?" To which no answer was given.
So who is it that is poisoned?
What shows that Dr. Morris's 3 tests that found sky-high cadmium were not in error. 3 other pre-77 hair samples had normal cadmium levels. The Truth Committee did 6 hair tests in all. and more tests can be done on hair samples that still exist. But those who have them must guard them from those who would like to eliminate the evidence. Obviously, the poisoners who are still alive do not want any further tests, and it should be cautioned that future tests must be arranged with independent agencies and the government of India, lest one be charged with obstruction of justice and an investigation into murder. Srila Prabhupada exhibited a set of medical symptoms unique to cadmium poisoning, but which are not found in diabetes or kidney disease. For example, Srila Prabhupada wore dark sunglasses due to photophobia, even indoors, due to extreme aversion to light. Tamal very cleverly avoided the qualified doctors and allopathic medical tests, and he stuck to back alley bubbas and kavirajas, one of whom even prescribed the bark from 45 various trees. Balavanta also had Dr. Morris test some hair stuck on Srila Prabhupada's hair clipper blades and found arsenic 20 times above normal. Cadmium was the primary poison and arsenic was secondary. Of course, other poisons that have not yet been discovered may also have been used. Discovery of the cadmium and arsenic was by pure luck or by Krishna's arrangement, as a separate test must be made for every poisonous agent, of which there are at least hundreds. The evidence is massive that Srila Prabhupada was poisoned. That Tamal was involved is practically certain, beyond a reasonable doubt, as detailed in chapters 54 through 70 from our free, online, downloadable book, Kill Guru, Become Guru, The Poisoning of Srila Prabhupada's Body. Chapter 72 establishes that evil agents and poisoners have infiltrated the movement with an agenda to neutralize its spiritual potency. Now, Tamal, he was taken away in 2002, but the rest of Srila Prabhupada's poisoners are still in control of ISKCON after 40 years. And this matters because they continue to poison Srila Prabhupada's mission with disobedience, deviations, and defective doctrines. Poison His Divine Grace's books with open-ended, unnecessary, and endless changes, sometimes changing even the changes. And poison the intelligence of the innocent followers of Srila Prabhupada. They have convinced so many that Srila Prabhupada is dead and gone, unavailable, now a memory from the dustbin of history. The poisoners are like an infection that, unless cured, will become fatal to the spiritual health of the Hare Krishna movement. The same watering down and desecration happened in Christianity 2,000 years ago and must not be allowed to spoil Srila Prabhupada's mission today. Since the proof of Srila Prabhupada's poisoning has been incontrovertibly established and made public in May of 2017, ISKCON misleaders have made no response whatsoever. However, the general devotees have been deeply affected and are increasingly aware of the actual situation and rot in the ISKCON institution. The poisoners have had a grand feast, gorging themselves on Srila Prabhupada's assets for 4 decades, with undeserved worship, sannyasi female secretaries, luxurious possessions and vacations, false prestige, stolen wealth, and blind followers. But all that is ending for these despicable vultures. The poisoners' heyday is over. Their dues must be paid, as their fate has betrayed them. The poisoning of Srila Prabhupada, which they thought they could get away with, has been uncovered, in spite of their determined cover-ups, denials, and interference. The time to pay for poisoning the pure devotee ambassador of the Supreme Lord is nigh. The sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada now want a reckoning for the poisoners to be all identified, punished, and removed forever from the movement. But in all fairness, a last chance should be given to all ISKCON first and second tier leaders to disassociate yourselves from Srila Prabhupada's poisoners. Maybe you really did not believe that Srila Prabhupada could have been poisoned, and maybe you thought it was necessary for the good of the institution to join in with the dishonest cover-up and the blocking of any real investigation into the matter. Maybe that's why you voted for or did not protest in 2000 the GBC declaration that there is no evidence at all to support Srila Prabhupada's poisoning. Maybe you really don't know anything about what happened in 1977. But hopefully, maybe, out of your duty as an ISKCON leader and as an obligation to Srila Prabhupada, you have now studied the evidence that has been clearly presented in our book and films, and you can appreciate that there is scientific proof that no further doubt about it. Yes, Srila Prabhupada was poisoned maliciously, homicidally, and practically 100% for certain by Tamal Krishna Goswami and his assistants. So here is the final chance of amnesty before the sugarcane field is burnt clean. All GBC members, ISKCON sannyasis, temple presidents, heads of ministries, deputies, regional secretaries, and other ISKCON managers. You have until the start of 2018 to publicly declare where you stand. Either declare that you are extremely concerned, if not convinced, about the evidence of Srila Prabhupada's poisoning and its ramifications and effects on the health and welfare of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna consciousness movement, or you will be marked as complicit in Srila Prabhupada's poisoning. For your own and everyone's good, you are highly advised to end your silence and complicity.
But one who tolerates mischievous activity, he is also culprit. If you are mischievous, you are criminal. But if you tolerate mischievous activity, that is also criminal.
If you fail to do so by this date, the entire world will then assume you are either one of Srila Prabhupada's poisoners or you are supporting them, which makes you equally as guilty and incriminated. So which is it? Everyone is watching you. Are you complicit or not?
If you know that someone is committing criminal activities, then if you associate with them, you will also become implicated.
The Truth Committee, a private investigative body, on behalf of all concerned parties, hereby issues an ultimatum to an initial list of persons of interest and those possibly having relevant information in the matter of Srila Prabhupada's proven cadmium poisoning, namely Bhakti Charu Swami, Jayapataka Swami, Bhavananda Das, Satadanya Das, Satsarup Goswami, and Bir Krishna Swami. That by the start of 2018 you either agree publicly or privately that you are amenable to interviews, depositions, truth tests such as polygraph and voice stress analysis, and other measures in the pursuit of identifying those who poisoned Srila Prabhupada, or it will be clear that you are still a non-cooperator and have something to hide in this matter. The second half of the private investigation into Srila Prabhupada's poisoning is now underway. The hunt for exactly who was involved or who knows about Srila Prabhupada's poisoning is now on. And since the truth always prevails, why not be open and truthful?
So who is it that has poisoned?
The Truth Committee hereby offers a reward of $50,000 in cold hard cash for information, testimonies, or documents that leads to the first felony conviction in a court of law related to Srila Prabhupada's death, including conspiracy to murder. Informants and information will be kept strictly confidential, except to share with law enforcement agencies who will also maintain confidentiality. Poisoners beware. How's it feel to have a price on your head? We're coming for you, so start sweating. And be careful what you say and do that might give yourself away or betray your dark secrets. Can you trust your co-poisoners and those who know what you really did? The Truth Committee has opened a poison investigation fund to support the pursuit of those who were involved in or who know about Srila Prabhupada's poisoning, to which motivated persons may make any size contribution, which will be matched by an anonymous donor, dollar for dollar. This is one practical and meaningful way anyone can help serve the twin causes of truth and justice for Srila Prabhupada. And it won't be spent on things like going with Bhakti Charuswami on a South Pacific cruise ship so-called retreat, which we suggest he cancel and get busy preparing his legal defense team and schedule for depositions about his suspected involvement in and knowledge of Srila Prabhupada's poisoning. I mean, here's the man who has 8 conflicting stories about why he thinks Srila Prabhupada said that he was being poisoned. And there are those that want to go on a cruise retreat with him? Unbelievable. Lastly, we request all honest devotees who can understand that Srila Prabhupada's movement has been hijacked by poisoners, offenders, and rascals to recite the following prayer. Dear Lord Nrsingadev, please remove the poisoners, the deviants, offenders, and book changers who have infiltrated Srila Prabhupada's mission, and please help us to restore it as Srila Prabhupada intended it to be.
Shri Narsimha, Jai Narsimha, Jai Jai Narsimha. Praladesha, Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma,